Hey folks, this is Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking. So if you're in the Northeast, mountain bike season is just around the corner. Are you in shape? I'm not. We're going to talk to a professional that can help you get yourself back on the pedals. Hey folks, this is Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking, where we talk about all kinds of cool things that have to do with mountain biking, and of course home of the Regular Guy Mountain Biking BikeChat. Today I've got a great guest with me. I've got a gentleman named James Wilson. You may also know him as Bike James. And he is a fitness professional. The guy knows his way around fitness, whether you're on a bike or not. And I had asked him if he wouldn't mind jumping on the Regular Guy Mountain Biking Bike Chat to give us regular guys some tips on, quite honestly, how to get our butts back on our bikes after a long winter of plenty of cookies. So that's what we're talking about today. So James, thank you so much for jumping on the show.
Yeah, Gene, it's my pleasure. Really appreciate you having me on. Can't wait to share some stuff with your audience.
That's cool, because if the audience are anything like me, we need stuff. So before we even get into that, I like I mentioned before, I have followed you for actually quite some time. You've got great tips. I've actually learned a lot from you, and you don't even realize you taught me something. But I don't know if as many folks know about you as I do. So what's a little about what's going on here? What do you do, my friend?
Sure, man. Yeah, well, I have a company called MTB Strength Training Systems, and it was a brainchild of mine back in 2005. And it was basically born because back then there really was no really good mountain bike specific strength and conditioning info. And so when I got into mountain biking, I knew, with my background as being a strength coach and also in being a track athlete, that strength training was one of the fastest ways to improve your performance in a sport. And so I started looking for information, and like I said, the stuff that I found was like, either bodybuilder stuff like 3 sets of 10 or, just it wasn't what I knew, like from riding my mountain bike. It didn't represent what I knew, that the kind of athletes, the way that they would train. So I started doing my own thing based on what I knew, from my experience. And one thing led to another. I started training some riders locally, and I still remember sitting on my couch in Texas thinking like, man, I wonder if other people would be interested in this too. So I got a website, and I put up, a website, and I still don't know where those first emails even came from, but all of a sudden I got a newsletter list going. So I'm like, well, I guess I better, share some information with these people. So since about 2005, I've been doing a really, regular, at least like once a week newsletter, sending out, sharing information with people. I've worked with a lot of professional riders in multiple disciplines, several national champions, and, including like cross country and downhill disciplines. So, pretty good experience that. But really my favorite people to work with are the average everyday rider, because that's what I am. Like, I'm just, your average Joe, I'm not a pro. Right. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what can I do to have as much fun on my bike as possible while balancing life and work and family and all that other stuff. So that's really who I try to talk to with my blog at Bike James and stuff like that. So, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So basically, have you always been a mountain biker? Did you and then you went into strength, or was it just part of your you like sports and you just happen to ride a bike?
No, the way around actually. Like I think like most kids growing up my age, I rode a BMX bike for sure, just around the neighborhood, jumping off curbs and setting up bricks on boards and
scratching knees and stuff like that. Of course.
Yeah. So I mean, I rode bikes, and I always had a love affair with like bikes. I mean, who doesn't remember being a kid riding their bike and just like was like the best feeling ever. And so I didn't ride bikes. I didn't get into mountain biking until I was 23 or 24.
Oh, okay.
So pretty late into the game, but I ran track in high school, and I always had this unnatural obsession looking back on strength training and how you can manipulate the body to perform and enhance different things through knowing different exercises and sets and reps and things like that. And so, I had that background. I got into mountain biking kind of through the back door. Like I worked in Santa Barbara at the time for a company that certified personal trainers. And if you've ever been to Santa Barbara, it's a beautiful place, but downtown parking can be a little bit of a pain in the butt.
Okay.
And so I was looking for a bike to ride to work because I live close enough to do that. And, I honestly, I thought road bikes looked kind of weenie. And I thought a mountain bike, like, I was like, man, that looks kind of like my old BMX bike, like the knobby tires and looks a little more like a BMX bike. So I got my first mountain bike just to ride to work. And
Gotcha.
I ended up riding up and down a fire road one weekend because I got really bored. And again, I had a track and cross country background. So that endurance side of things was there. But man, I was hooked from that first ride. Cause I was like, I always explain it to people, like, if an endurance sport and an action sport got together one night and had a baby, it's mountain biking. You get like awesome. That runner's high that you get from the endurance sport. You get that adrenaline rush that you get from an action sport. And it's so unique. I really can't think of many other sports that really combine those two things the way that mountain biking does.
Right.
So it's what makes it such a unique sport, but it also what makes it unique to train for, and why a lot of people get mixed up because they're looking to, road riding or other sports that, also involve something on two wheels, thinking like, well, that's going to tell me how to train for mountain biking, when it's like, no, it's not the trail, So anyways, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then, so basically you already had this very solid knowledge of strength training. And basically you said, look, whoa, this mountain bike thing's pretty cool. How can I make this better? You already had a very solid understanding of strength training. But what was interesting is you didn't just try to apply your standard 101 strength training. I have to assume you basically analyzed mountain biking and said, these are the key things that I feel a mountain biker would want to get out of strength training to make it to perform better, and that's what I think is really so cool and I've gone through a lot of your guides. Your strength training is very focused around the sport. It's not like, oh, you can mountain bike and you can also golf and you can play volleyball. Just do these 5 things. No, they're specific to a mountain biker. We don't have a hell of a lot of time, and that's what I love about what you teach and go through.
Yeah. No, that's it. Like, knowing what to focus on with the limited time that you have. Like, there's so many different names for it. The 80-20 rule,
right.
Where 80% of your results come from 20% of things you can do. The big rock story, where you got to get the big rocks in the jar first before you get the other stuff in. Like, however you look at it, like, that's the basic concept is, what are those big rocks? Like, what's that 20%? And you can really get amazing results from being consistent with those things.
Right.
And, that's the other thing is, it's like, people need to remember, like, if you're a mountain biker, this is a long-term journey. I tell people this a lot. Like, one of the things I wish, I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for several years now. And one of the things that I wish that we did with new riders, that we do with every single person when they step foot on the mat, is tell them, like, hey, bro, it's a long journey. It's going to be 10 years until you really start to get to the point where you've got things figured out. And at that point, you're going to realize that you don't know crap, and you need, you know what I mean? And that's when the real learning begins. But in all honesty, we don't expect anything from you for the first, 1, 2, maybe 3 years. By that point, you're going to start. But it's but letting people know, like, man, this is a journey, and it's okay to not be setting Strava PRs and KOMs like right off the bat as soon as you start riding. I think there's this crazy mentality, like, you need to start riding or racing right off the bat. You need to get on Strava and start comparing yourself to other people right off the bat. And man, it screws people's perspective up. Right. And so you don't even need to worry about that stuff for the first 1 to 3 years of riding. Right. And at that point, you can start looking at being a little more competitive because it's funny. I tell people, like, it will take you about 10 years to ride as good as the people that you see right now who've been riding for about 10 years. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's how it works. Yeah.
It's how it works. Right. Yeah.
They put the time in. You kind of have to too. But I think that's great advice so that people don't get so overwhelmed in the beginning. It's like, well, you know what? The guy that maybe bunny hopped over that log probably busted his ass quite a few times and deserves to be able to jump over that log the way he did or she did, because they kind of put the time in, but that's also kind of why I wanted to ask you to help some of the subscribers here. Yeah. Time is evil. you know, because there's only 24 hours and there's just not enough time. So, what can a regular guy do to focus on, like, if there was only so many things we could do,
right?
What should we do to improve our riding, just for our average Joe riding, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, well, first thing that I tell people, and this sounds kind of a little out of left field, but check your priorities and make sure that you're not wasting time doing stuff that you don't really need to be doing for stuff that you don't really need. Like, you know, not to go all Fight Club, but way too many people are working jobs that they hate for crap that they don't need. And then they turn around and say, I don't have enough time to do anything for my fitness and health. And it's like, well, that's not true. You do. Your priorities are out of whack. And so I encourage people, especially as you kind of hit the late 30s, mid 40s, you know, 50s, like, make sure you haven't taken on some priorities just over time that are like, wait a minute, what the hell is this? Like, I need to get this out of here so I can have more time to focus on what's really important. And so, so that's the first thing, you know, kind of check your priorities and see if you can free up some more time through that. But with that said, probably the best advice I've ever heard early on was from an Australian strength coach named Ian King. And he said that the key to strength training, like off, you know, you have sport, you're practicing your sport. But so for us, off the bike training, the best thing that you can do is to focus on the stuff that you don't do in your sport. Right. And so the last thing that I want to waste time on, like if I'm on my bike and I'm getting a lot of cardio, last thing I want to waste time on is working on more cardio when I'm off my bike. Like, what am I not getting when I'm on my bike? Okay. And so what are the gaps? And so for most of us, it's going to be mobility. Okay. So I think static stretching is extremely underrated. And I'm not talking yoga. Okay. Like I tell people you need to stretch and like, yeah, I do need to do yoga. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not what I said. Like yoga and stretching are not the same thing. Okay. Like just taking half an hour to just stretch and breathe and just kind of like get in tune with your body without, you know, some challenging pose and stuff involved. But just basic static stretching will go a really, really, really long way. Like if you had only like 10, 15 minutes a day to do something, stretch. Like that will go a long way to helping you with your performance overall.
I had mentioned I had some herniated discs, and one of the comments that my physical therapist said was, you're only as young as your back feels and can stretch, because if you can't bend and pick up something on the ground, all of a sudden you feel really freaking old. So you're only as young as your mobility and stretching allows you, because all of a sudden you feel real old when you creak when you stand up, and it's like, so that's a really good point on at least the first phase to focus on. That's actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, for most of us, we have too much tension in the system already, you know, and if you think about things from like things that add tension to the system and things that decrease tension from the system, and we're trying to maintain a balance, like riding your bike adds tension to the system. Strength training adds tension to the system. Right. You know, if you're not doing things that take tension away, things like, you know, foam rolling is a good thing. Massage is good. Static stretching is excellent for that. But those things are taking tension away from the system. So if you think about trying to balance those two factors, all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm doing a lot of things already. So anyways, I think static stretching just gets underrated by a lot of people. So, you know, if you've got more time to start getting into, you know, more than that, then that's where I would encourage people to start doing some basic strength training. Okay. And with that, I like, you know, keeping in mind that you're always dealing with boxes, right? Like it used to be biceps, triceps, hamstrings, quads. Like that's how we used to train back in the day, and we split up the body. And now we've got better boxes and you know, things like push and pull, hinge and squat, you know, things that focus on these general body movements, but also keeping in mind that there's things like throwing and skipping and, you know, running, being able to sprint, being able to jog. Like, you know, there are uniquely human gifts like throwing and running. Like we're the only creature on the planet that can throw with power and accuracy. Like a monkey can fling poo at you, but we're the only thing that can pick up a rock and spot something and hurl it with enough power and accuracy to kill it. You know, running, again, if you ever read the book Born to Run, we're very unique in our abilities to run. And so losing those uniquely human gifts, like not being able to run and not being able to throw with some power and accuracy with both arms, right? Like most people are like, I can barely do it with one arm.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, well, yeah. So, do your shoulders hurt because you can't throw and you can't throw, or do they hurt because you can't throw? Like just doing some soft toss stuff for people with shoulder problems can help a lot of times. Being able, I don't know. So the thing is like keeping a bigger picture in perspective, like that you're a human being that rides a mountain bike. You're not a mountain biker. I hate to burst everybody's bubble. Like, we're a human being that rides a mountain bike. So there are things that we can do specifically to help the mountain bike. But really the most important thing you can do is ride your bike. That's the most important thing you can do is ride your bike. And so you really want to look at the things that you're doing off of the bike is how can they support riding my bike and not detract from it.
Right.
And so that's where some basic strength training, doing like the hinge, like, deadlifts or single leg deadlifts, the squats, pushing like, push-ups or shoulder presses, you're pulling like your chin-ups or rows. So these general movements and stuff, having some strength training that works on building strength with those patterns, but then just keeping in mind, like, man, every once in a while, if I get off the bike and I go for like a jog and I stop and I start throwing some rocks, and then maybe I see a log over there and I jump on it and balance while I walk on it, like stuff like that can really go a long way towards helping your overall performance as a human and a mountain biker. So it's kind of like, don't forget to have fun, like get outside and just like play and have fun too. Get on the ground and crawl and all those things, man. Like don't lose those things, because when you do, it's going to affect you as a mountain biker. So
one of the things that I actually would challenge the folks that are watching this right now, recently, I mean, there was a football. I tossed a football and I realized, holy crap, I can't throw a football anymore. So folks, the people that are watching this right now, tell me what you think. Like, can you throw a football still? I know it sounds silly, but I thought, well, of course I can throw a football. I'm a guy. I throw footballs. That's what we do. We're born to throw. No, we can lose it. And I was never good at it, but all of a sudden I realized that I really sucked at it, and what happened. And that's a really good point, that part of this is just doing stuff, just doing, because regular folks like us are really not training for the Olympics. We're not training for specific super high critical events. Now, we may be racing, and those personal goals and races that you want to do are extremely important to you. So I don't want to belittle any goals that you have, folks, that you're watching, because that's what keeps you moving. But there are things that you can do that can keep you going, that you don't have to go and kill yourself over here. And that's a really good point, man. I just never really put it in that perspective before.
Yeah, everything doesn't have to count as training. Like that's the tough part, is like I've literally had people email me and tell me, how do I quantify a hike with my kids in my training program? And it's like, dude, you don't. Like, just have fun. Like everything doesn't have to count as training. And so just keeping some perspective, and really I encourage people, like, again, like you said, having goals is great.
Right.
But if you're not paying your mortgage based on your performance in a race, I really strongly encourage you to keep some perspective on the fact that one day you are going to be 50, 60, 70 years old, and having to deal with the repercussions of your decisions right now. And you talk to like any NFL player who's hobbling along, and most of them are like, hell yeah, it was worth it. It was great. For some amateur that didn't get to taste any of that and is paying the same price, it's a different thing. And so you don't see the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of these pros go through, like how they're literally hobbling when they get off the bike. They've got a team of masseuses and trainers that travel with them to keep together. They're like thoroughbred racehorses, man. They look really healthy and strong on the surface and in their thing, but underneath they're very fragile, and things can get broken and thrown out of whack really easily. And so, if it's worth it, if you're tasting that glory and you're making the money and you're able to look back. But like I said, I just see a lot of people breaking their bodies down to like not even win a pair of socks at some local race series, and it's just like, man, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
Is it totally worth it. So not belittling anybody's goals, but it's just perspective, man. You
Right.
got to have some perspective. So
Well, one of the things I also want to do too, just based on time and where we're
yeah,
at
for
with
sure.
our call, folks. James has a site called Bike James, and the reason why I want to bring that up is because if you do want to add to your training, okay, he's got a number of different levels you can go to, and a lot of it's even free, just to kind of get some ideas on some topics, some basic training. He'll show you how to use some dumbbells, some kettlebells. There's also some. Then if you want to take it to the next level, like the whole conversation we had so far was, chill out, take it easy with the training. But if you're that dude or that gal that wants to go to the degree, James has got that stuff for you on his site. He's got the ultimate training. Is it the ultimate training guide?
Yeah, the ultimate MTB workout program.
Yeah. So there's content there too. So besides going out there and chucking rocks and just living life and having a good time, if you want to step it up, James has got some great stuff. Also. And we only have a few moments, but I wanted to bring this up because I'm a huge fan of flat pedals. Okay? I'm not, again, my 2 cents. So, folks, please, there's nothing against clipless. This is my 2 cents. I like flats. It's also a direction that a lot of people are going in. When I interviewed, holy cow, I'm pulling up blanks over. Griff Wiggler.
Yeah, Griff.
Okay, when I interviewed Griff, flat pedals. All right. When I interviewed Ryan, okay, flat pedals. Lot of Ryan Leach,
Yeah.
flat pedals. Now, okay, so again, I'm not trying to bias and steer. I'm just saying that flats, it's kind of cool again in the sense because technology is allowing us to do some different things. We've got some great pedals and some different styles. But blah 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 blah. Where I'm trying to take this is James has some unique platform pedals that I would like to, at least kind of explain those a little bit so you can kind of explain what the hell is with the flat pedals over here.
Sure, man. Yeah, no problem. So, the Catalyst pedals, that's the name of the pedals. And really, God, it's hard for people to understand how biased their thinking is towards the subject because of what they've already been told beforehand. And that there is actually science that exists about the pedal stroke. And that if you just take a step back and you get away from all the hype of this and that and blah, 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 and Tour de France, this and whatever. So let's just get back from all the hype, okay? Let's just look like, what does the science tell us? And what the science tells us is that you don't need to pull up on the backstroke. So, we're not trying to push and pull at the same time. And that there's no advantage to being on the ball of the foot. This has been studied several times. So this whole ankling theory has been shown that it's not better than a midfoot position. And in fact, one study found that the midfoot position took stress off of the calf and Achilles tendon, and they theorized that stress went to the hips, which anyone who knows anything about how the body moves, that's the strongest muscles in the lower body. And so one day I was out on the trail and I was like, man, why don't I need stiff-soled shoes in the gym? Why can I squat and deadlift hundreds of pounds in the gym? And
I've watched your workouts. You do it barefoot, for crying out loud.
Yeah, barefoot. Exactly. I do it barefoot. Why is it? And all of a sudden it hit me. It's because, the ground supports both ends of the arch of your foot. And when you support both ends of the arch, it's a strong, stable surface. But if you're only on one end, like the ball of the foot, and the other end is destabilized, now you have a completely destabilized, unbalanced structure, your foot. And so that's why when you're in the gym, they tell you not to push through the balls of your feet. You want to drive through your heels, drive through your whole foot, because if you're on the balls of your feet, you're putting a lot more stress on your knees and you're not able to recruit your hips effectively. And so no self-respecting coach would have someone squat or deadlift in the gym on the balls of their feet. And so again, but when you look at when we're on our bikes, our foot does not come off the pedal. When we're running or walking, our foot comes off the ground. And so people get confused because we use all these analogies of how when you're running or walking, you push through the ball of your foot. And when, you're jumping over a car speeding at you or something ridiculous like that.
Right.
And it's but your foot's coming off of what it's in contact with. When you're on the pedal, that's not the case. When you look at how your foot acts when it stays in contact with what it's on, when you're in the gym, doing squats or deadlifts, when you're sitting into a chair, standing up, when you're
Right.
squatting down to pick up a box off of the porch. Like, your foot stays flat, that you don't come up on the ball of your foot. And this other analogy of, like, athletes being more agile on the ball of their foot, we completely forget there's this class of athletes that have way more in common with us. Most of the analogies have sports where athletes are running or jumping or they're propelling themselves through space.
Right.
There's another class of athletes that ride something that is propelling their center of gravity through space. And that's what's happening with us. We're on a bike that's carrying our center of gravity through space. You look at, like, surfers, skateboarders, equestrian riders, motocross, all of these sports, you will find an almost exclusive use of the midfoot position. Like, you don't see surfers on the ball of their feet. You don't see skateboarders on the ball of their feet. Why? Because they're more agile. They're able to change levels and move better when you're on the ball, when you have a flat foot.
Right.
Again, and so when you actually step back and you look at the science, you look at, like, the actual real world evidence of what's going on and how the foot works, and other athletes and other sports that share more in common with us, all of it points to a pedal that optimizes the midfoot position. Right. That midfoot position and supporting both ends of the arch of the foot is the best way to go, because it's going to allow you to recruit your hips. It's going to give you a balanced, stable foot. People don't realize, like, when you're, when you have say, here's the axle of your pedal. When you're have pressure points, you've got the either end is the arch of your foot, and you're pushing down, it's balanced. As soon as I go to the ball of my foot, it creates this unbalanced platform. We get this tipping forward. That's why when you're on the ball of your feet, your toes are tipping forward. You see people coming over and their toes are almost pointing down, because you're literally trying to kick your foot off the pedals when you're in that position. As soon as you get flat, you come over the top, you can drive with your heel as well, and it creates a flat platform. You're not like this, so you can actually, like, pedal through rock gardens and stuff that you never think of pedaling through on flats with a strong, stable foot. So it's just, in my experience in the gym, if your foot is happy and functioning well, the rest of the body is going to have a better chance of being happy and functioning well. And if you look at how the foot is on the bike in a clipless pedal or a standard flat, it just makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense from a science standpoint, from a movement standpoint, anything. And so outside of tradition, it's so anyways, that was kind of what spawned the Catalyst pedal. Is it's really like, hey, if this is how we're going to train in the gym, right? If we're going to say this is how we need to train our body, nobody's doing squats and deadlifts on the balls of their feet. Well, then why are we getting on our bike and changing that foot position? We're not going to get the transfer. It makes no sense. And so, anyways, that's it. And I encourage people. I have on my bike at BikeJames.com, besides a lot of free workouts, free kettlebell workouts and dumbbell workouts and stuff, whatever, flavor you want to try on to get started with strength training. Right. I also have the Flat Pedal Revolution Manifesto. You can just Google that and you'll find it. And in that, you'll find all of the science, all of the evidence, all of the stuff that I'm talking about. And I encourage people, because honestly, like, being ignorant about why you're right is only marginally better than being ignorant about why you're wrong. And so if you're a fan of flat pedals, but you don't know the science and you don't know why you're right, you don't know, oh yeah, well, this is what the science says, and this is what the evidence says, and this is why I'm right. Like I said, it's a 50-50 chance. If you don't know why you're whatever you are, like, if you've never looked into it. And so, so anyway, so I encourage people, even, flat pedal or clipless pedal or whatever, like, just take a look at the evidence and then make a decision for yourself. Right. And try and step back from, like, the tradition and the hysterics that people fall into when you start challenging the establishment. But, there you go.
No, that's good. Yeah. Well, and folks, I mean, I remember, I don't ever push anything on anybody. And anyone that's watching this show, they all know this is just Gene's opinion. He doesn't shove anybody down anybody's throat. So I'm encouraging right now opinions. Give us your thoughts. Because remember, folks, your thoughts are what help other people along the way. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? Anything you say can help another rider out, and that's really the goal of Regular Guy Mountain Biking, to help each other through our mountain biking journey. James has some great points. What are your points? So let's talk about this, because it's really a unique topic, as well as just fitness in general. There's some tips over here. Like, I was expecting him to say, well, you got to do 4 squats of this and this and that. And notice how he basically said, go out there and throw a rock at a tree. But when he mentions it, it's like, but that's a damn good point. I don't even know if I could do that anymore, So we're regular folks just trying to enjoy and love our sport, and we don't want that ever to stop. And that was the goal of this conversation. How do we get ready for this, get a little bit better shape to do it, and continue to do something we love? Mainly because if we're some of those folks that are doing jobs and doing things that we might not love, mountain biking is generally the other side of the coin that helps us stay sane.
Oh, yeah.
If you lose that, folks, if you lose the sanity we gain from mountain biking, where the hell are you then? So that's why I thought this was such a unique conversation with James on the goal is not to win a race. To win the race is to be able to mountain bike as long as you possibly can. That's the race, folks. Being able to ride for as long as you can because we love it. Because once you stop, you lost. That's it. Yeah. You're not going to be happy. And these points are awesome. James, I gotta thank you. This is everything I wanted the call. Remember I said, how long the time going to be? It's going to be what it needs to be, and this is exactly what I'm glad we went over, because this is what this call needed to be. I loved every minute of it. Folks, I hope you gained a lot from this. So again, give me your comments. Thank you so much, James, for having you on the call here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And so, folks, do me a favor. Give us your comments. Subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a little thing that comes up and subscribes. There's also going to be a couple links to some other videos I'd love to have you to watch, just to keep up with everything. Most importantly, look, have a great time. Remember, party on the pedals, my friends. Keep on mountain biking as long as you can. James, thank you so much, and we're going to catch everybody later on. Bye-bye.
Yeah, sounds good.